Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Excelcast. I'm your host, Joe Parker, and today I have a very special guest, Ishmael Butler. Ishmael, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Weather's great outside. Just got back from a little football scrimmage. I'm feeling good. Got football in the brain, so I'm excited to be here, though.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I kind of want to get into what we were just talking about, to be honest. I know you as Mick Mick. A lot of people in college know you as Mick Mick. Um, or Mick, however they referred to you as, but
Right.
you have since then changed your name to Ishmael or Ish. Um, Kind of just explain that a little bit, how that journey's been and how you came to that name and that realization that that's what you needed to do.
Word. So, I think that journey actually started at the end of college. For me, football was everything. Football was my life. I 100% put that first before school, which I probably shouldn't have. But when it ended, I had a lot of questions about myself and who I was as a person. And thankfully, I had great teammates and a lot of really good teachers that helped me through that. But it took a lot of self reflection and trying to find myself. I think through the years of trying to find myself, I've come to the idea of who I want the best version of myself to be, and what that kind of person looks like. The how he dresses, the things he buys, the things that he does on a regular basis. Just trying to always progress and be better. And I felt like to somewhat embody that for myself was a change in name. And I was really getting into a lot of reading and things like that. And through my readings, I've kind of learned that through different transitions in life, there comes a point where it's almost a metamorphosis, if you will.
Yeah.
Though in my head, I think of the analogy of kind of a caterpillar turned into a butterfly. So I
Yeah.
think Mick was the caterpillar, right? And I'm trying to go into the butterfly. The butterfly was Ishmael. So Ishmael, like I said, is just someone who I feel like is the best version of myself. Does all the right things. Is successful in life, whether that be my own version of success is trying to be enlightened, if you will, which is what we're going to talk about today. Just kind of reaching the highest points of everything I have to offer. But the name actually is my middle name.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so my full name is Mikhail Ishmael Butler. That's the Govey, and I just kind of felt like actually my brother kind of put me onto it. We looked up the definitions of our names, and Mikhail was at least the definition he showed me. I don't know. Was someone relatively I'm gonna say it said I don't want to make it religious, but it said God, and then like Ishmael was like a prophet. So I never felt like I was at that level. I felt like I did a lot of talking to people more so, and I felt like Ishmael kind of embodied more so of what I was doing in my life, just trying to kind of be a good light in people's life. I feel like prophets do that. Prophets show people the way of how to kind of live and how to do things. And I feel like, I try to do that. I try to give back to kids a lot and try to like show them like, hey, look, like this is how you become like a good man in this world and how you do things. So again, just trying to embody like the best version of myself, and it just fell right in my lap. It felt like it was always meant to be. So
Yeah, definitely profit fits you because you were always very personable. You like to talk to people. You always had a great energy about you whenever anyone, was around you. I mean, I know I personally whenever I was with you, um you were always someone who I knew was a good person, who I knew would always be kind, would always be nice, would always be generous. And I really admire that about you. And I always have admired that about you. And that's why you were one of the people I reach out to about doing this podcast. You always had a great energy and a great head on your shoulders. And, we all like to party. And,
yeah.
you got to forgive yourself for that because that was a point. You have to hit those parts of life in order to find the path that you're truly meant to be on.
Oh yeah.
And I really feel like you're doing a good job and you're doing a great job. And one of the points you also made about self reflection, too, I feel like self reflection is key because if we never do that, we may often stay on the same path and it could lead to self destruction to an extent.
Most certainly. Thank you for the kind words. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I couldn't have said it better myself, to be honest.
Yeah, man. What's what was one of like the main aspects that you had to reflect on or kind of like what was something that you really had to like look in the mirror and be like, this needs to change right now?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. I felt like there were a lot of things that kind of drove me to that point. I think one of the first ones was uh, starting when I really made the transition. This was during COVID, into reading and writing. Was the first big change of like, hey, you got to do something. I think being in COVID, we all had a really hard time of being by ourselves, and it kind of forced all of us to look in the mirror a little bit. And I kind of took the realization of, hey, the path you're taking of kind of really being super superficial and kind of wanting all these items and all these things that in the long run of things probably won't matter in 5 to 10 years. It's like, kind of, what else do you want out of life? Like, I had to really sit down and be like, what does being alive mean to you? What's your purpose? What are you doing with yourself? And thankfully, reading and writing kind of got me through that. I picked up reading a lot of philosophy. Philosophy was always a deep love of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I read a lot into Western philosophy. Now, starting to transition more into Eastern philosophy, kind of get a full view of things. But paired with that, and then being able to write down all my thoughts, man, I tell you what, like it helped me out so much. And that was the first part of that big self reflective transformation for me, being like, hey, man, like, football's over. Who are you?
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you enjoy? Like, what are your pleasures in life? And it was hard. It was hard, but necessary.
Yeah. When you attach yourself too much to one thing, that one thing can be taken away from you at any given moment. And
Yeah,
sometimes
man.
God or a higher power or, whatever you feel like that higher power is will often take those things away from you because that breaks you down a little bit. And it kind of makes you really reflect on who am I? Because you could be, at the time, Mick, the football player, right? And you're just Mick, the football player, and God goes, okay, well, what happens when I take that away from you? What are you now?
Yeah, yo,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Say you're a
I could
freak
not have said it
athlete.
better.
You're a freak athlete. Okay, you now have something happens, a freak accident, you lose a leg. Okay, what are you now?
Yup. And it's crazy you say that, and I apologize if I cut you off, but it's crazy
Go
to say
ahead.
that because I was actually just talking to a good friend of mine, and everyone has ups and downs in life, and I was literally telling him that our higher power, whatever that may be, uh, it only, for some reason, it decides to give us lessons in trials and hurdles in life. Like, that's the only way us as people are going to actually wake up to be like, you know what, this was a lesson. This is how I should take it. If our higher power gave us something in a lesson that's going to benefit us, or kind of push us in the right direction, we might not see it as well as if we get a setback. Those
Yeah.
setbacks really push us to be like, okay, how can I overcome this? And then we change from them. So I try to, I like I was saying, just telling my boy like, hey man, like, it's just another step in the story, another chapter.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like you know who Alex Hormozy is?
I've heard the name before.
Yeah, Mondo talked about it a little bit when he was on a
That's what
podcast
it
with me.
was.
Yeah. There was a quote by him that I really liked, and it said, if you wanted to make an ideal person, right? Say you wanted to make that person patient, you probably wouldn't give them everything right away.
Yep.
You would make them wait for things. And he kind of has a lot more examples. That's, I think, the first one he said. That's why it sticks with me the most. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like the same concept where you have to build upon those virtues, because when you build upon those virtues, that's what makes you a better person.
Most certainly, yo. Most certainly. I think that was the word virtues means so much to me now. I think I
Yeah.
got the first taste of it in college in was it Christian ethics class. Was the first time I ever really heard about virtues. But it comes up a lot. I've read a lot more into Stoicism, and it talks a lot. First, philosophy in general, all the schools are very similar. Like, they all have bits and pieces that are the same. Some are different. They're all very similar. But virtues was something that, like, really stuck out. I'm like, oh man, like, all right, what are these different virtues that I feel like I need to gain, that this new person needs to gain? A lot of that progression for me and self reflecting was, I mean, I didn't just pop out and know who the best version of myself was going to be. And, what kind of virtues they were into, so that was something
Yeah.
that, like, man, got to figure out what these virtues are, like which ones are really gonna hold steady in my life, and which ones do I really have to work on.
Yeah, it gives you like a checklist, for lack of a better word, like which ones am I going to really identify myself with? Because that, when you lose, say that, your leg gets messed up, you can't be that athlete anymore. Football's over. You're no longer a football player. One thing, as long as you're living, that stick with you are your virtues,
Mm-hmm.
are the being that you are, how you actually are. And I feel like that is why they are virtues. They are key points and key facets of the person, of the spirit, that you need to really focus on, because they stick with you and it's a practice that will never leave you.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think something that I'm kind of realizing more, and something that has been a realization for me in the past, has been that you can be. I think virtue comes in terms of situations. Like, you have different instances where you can be virtuous in certain things.
Yes.
So it was more so a matter of, and it is more so a matter of being virtuous in certain situations. Understand which virtues to pull out. Like, okay, my patience is being tested here. I should, take the deep breath. Kind of try to be a bit more patient. Like, hey, this is gonna take time. I don't think virtue is something that, like, you just get. I've come to realize that everything takes constant and consistent practice, and that's something that's like, that's how you get to that new, better version of yourself, practicing those virtues, and realizing, like, hey, is this a test? Trying to
Yeah.
realize them anyways.
Yeah. Just to give another, like, a real life example, kind of, right? Like, some people will wish for a lot of money, right? If that's something that people wish for.
Mm-hmm.
They wish for money, and they'll kind of want it to come in the form of like a lottery, but God will send people to be like, hey, like, if you get these certificates, like, you can get paid this much money. And people are just like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm waiting for the lottery. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And it's like, well, God, I forget the saying or the story. It's like,
No,
I
I
think
think I
it's
know what
from
you're talking about.
The Pursuit of Happiness, where people are like, no, like, someone will come save me. It's like,
Yep.
God's like, God will save me. He's like, I sent you two boats. I sent two boats to come get you. I sent you two great opportunities for you to make money and help your family out, but
Mm-hmm.
you're waiting on the lottery. But there were opportunities all around you. So being in the moment is very important. And just a practical example of virtues. Like, people are like, no, I want to be kind. And and then you're like, well, why are all these people annoying me? It's so hard to be kind when all these people are annoying me. And it's
Yep.
like, no, like, that's when you're supposed to be kind.
Yeah, we get tested in our hardest of points, and I feel like what really taught me a lot about that, and I don't think I'll be the person I am today without football, is with working out all the time, and constantly waking up early, and those late night practicing, you're busting your butt, and it's the times when you're tired and you're down and you're like, man, I don't know if I have any more left in the tank. That's when you get to the point of, like, all right, hey, am I going to stick to my virtues? Am I going to stick to my truest self and be like, hey, this is what I need to, really strive for? And those are points that, like, man, like, everyone hits them. Everyone hits them. No matter who you are, what you're doing, there's some point in your life where you're going to be like, man, like, this really stinks, or whatever the case is going on, or and you're just going to have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, man, like, this is the virtue that I got to work on. This is this test, you know?
Yeah. And it's very beneficial to surround yourself with people who are virtuous. Because speaking specifically to, waking up early for football, I know that there were times where I did not want to go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. I did
Oh,
not, I lived right across the street and I was still like, I'm good. Like, I don't feel like doing this. But I would come in there and Coach Stet would be doing backflips at like 4:45 in the morning. And part of me was like, yo, this dude is this crazy in a good way at
yeah,
4:45 in the morning, I can at least get in here. And I don't think I missed one lift, even though I was up doing whatever to all hours of the night. But I don't think I missed one lift because he set an example of I'm in here, I'm in here cleaning whatever he was power cleaning at 4:45 in the morning, waiting for you guys. I'm ready to go. I'm giving you all my energy. You need to show up with your energy because this is for you. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't even for me. So he
Mm-hmm.
was a virtuous person when it came to having that spirit still at 4:45 in the morning, which is hard for a lot of people to do. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you strive to be that sort of athletic trainer and well, personal trainer, I guess. What your occupation? What would you call that specifically?
I would say I'm a sports performance coach, but I dabble in
Okay.
some personal training.
Okay. Yeah, so how is that experience and how is your journey of, becoming a new person kind of cha- you know, how have you brought that into the sports performance training? Because I know you were an athletic trainer for a while.
Yeah.
That's what you went to school for, but how did you transition that? I'm sure I don't want to say the transition was easy, but it seems like there's a lot of overlap. So how was that, transition for you?
I would say it's a pretty easy transition. I don't think you're wrong in that. I think I was very blessed to have gone to King's because the education I got there was phenomenal, and especially in terms of like the human body and how the body moves and things like that. When I ended up going to school out here for my master's degree, I felt like I was breezing through a lot of classes. I was like, man, like I learned so much at King's, like it was crazy. But in terms of that transition of how I coach and how I teach, I think for one, my own personal life has given me a lot of insight, and thankfully, I'm still young, so I'm able to connect with a lot of the kids on more of a deeper level. But it's just a lot of you know trying to teach them like, hey, you're not alone. I always tell my kids it's a two-way street. If I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. Don't think that anyone is. I always try to teach them to have their own thoughts, try to teach them that, hey, when you mess up, and this is probably my biggest lesson, failure is okay. Like I tell everyone, like, hey, it's okay to fail. It's a matter of whether you learn from it or not. It's always about getting better. If you're failing and you're not learning anything from it, okay, then you have to sit back, take a step back, and reevaluate while you're not learning these lessons. But if you're able to go full force at something, give it your all, you'll have no regrets about that. You can go to sleep at night saying, I tried everything I can do. And that transition was super easy for me. It was just trying to basically say the same things I told myself in the mirror, trying to tell it to other people. So
Yeah.
like it's such a personal thing for me that like it's so natural. It's just so I don't even really think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um Speaking of like the education that Kings brought you, dude, you live in Arizona, yet you went to King's College in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So I got two questions for you.
All right.
Why did you pick Kings? And do you feel like there was a higher reason that you went to Kings other than just for your education in football?
Wow, great questions. So when I first was picking schools to go to Kings, I was actually still in Pennsylvania then before I moved to
Mm,
Arizona. And I honestly didn't know where I was going to go. I only applied to two schools. I applied to Slippery Rock and I applied to Kings. I got into
wow.
both, and then I was like, all right, I got to make a decision.
Mm,
So, because I wanted to play football, and they both had great AT majors. I actually didn't want to be AT. I wanted to be pre med at the time.
wow. Okay.
So Kings had a great pre med program and they had a great football program. And I went there and I went to Slippery Rock. I didn't get to talk to any coaches or anything like that. I went to Kings and them not knowing who I was, they was like, yo, come here. Like, let's come here, please. So the want there for me and the family environment that I got immediately, I was like, I need to go here. Like, this is just it for me. Um, Now, in terms of, I apologize. What was the second question again?
The second question was, do you feel like there was a higher power or a higher reason that you went to Kings, being that, your family kind of moved down to Arizona?
Yeah, so I think, and that was a decision I had to make, with my family because we moved after my freshman year, and with 1 year, I was like, okay, like the decision's there. It's like, do you want to leave, go to Arizona, and
Yeah.
kind of start over and
Yeah.
start somewhere new? And I'm glad I didn't.
Mm,
I'm glad I stayed. And I think that the higher purpose of it didn't reach me until I was kind of doing all this self reflecting and kind of
mm,
thinking of, all right, what were the events that led me to this point, And
Yeah.
those events were the friends I gained, were, you know, all the things I was able to learn. And honestly, shout out to Father Dan. Father Dan changed my life forever. I love that man. And he was my Christian ethics professor. And we had a lot of individual conversations of who I was as a person. And he started the conversation for me, and his belief in me and all that. You know, I think there most certainly was a higher purpose. I'm one of those people that I believe everything happens for a reason, but you make that reason worth it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you bring value to that reason. So you can, like, for example, you can uh, trip on the ground one day, you know, and the reason could be like, hey, I want you to, you know, look down at your feet and, you know, watch where you're walking. You know, you can decide to have that meaning be like, all right, am I gonna look down all the time and not pay attention up here? Or are you gonna make the reason bigger than that? Are you gonna make it be like, hey, look, I can pay attention to here, look down and notice everything, pick everything up. The idea is to be observant, you know?
Yeah.
Am I just going to look down? Am I going to be observant? So I think the lessons I learned there was just, you know, kind of trying to take my whole life again away from football, and yeah, I think it pushed me into being someone that can help other people too. It was definitely a bigger purpose. I know it for sure.
Yeah, I like your analogy with looking down and tripping and seeing where your feet are and taking reason from the things that happen to you, dude. Last night I went to Sky Zone. I DJ at Sky Zone.
Great place.
Yeah. I DJ there. I usually like to get out of there though, because it's about an hour from me from where I live. So, it's 10 o'clock. I want to get out of there. I want to drive back. I want to get home at a decent time before I have to go to bed. There was a kid there though who works there, and I've become like close with him, like just like messing around while I'm playing music, things like that. Like he's a cool kid, and like he wanted to play music over the speaker to like show me some of his songs that like he likes to listen to. And I was like, dude, like I'm really trying to like get out of here. Like, to be honest, he had to wait for everyone to leave because it was explicit music and they can't play
Mm.
that. So he had to wait for everyone to leave, and he's like, dude, like just stay, just stay, just stay. And I'm over here getting kind of like, bro, like I really don't feel like leaving. I don't feel like staying. I feel like leaving. And I was like, but you know what? He's been really cool to me all night. Like I'm gonna at least like listen to it. And then when I finally listened to it, I was like, all right, dude, like I'm leaving. He's like, all right, that's fine. So I left. Dude, on the way home, I got caught in standstill traffic because of an accident that was about five to 10 minutes before me.
Wow.
And that could have been me. But had I not taken any reason from that, right, I would have just been a guy who was irritated because he had to stay at Sky Zone a little bit, and a guy who was irritated because he was in standstill traffic. But when you're
Yep.
able to piece those things together, that is when you get value from life experiences.
100%.
And it's having that perspective of putting yourself in someone else's shoes where he just wanted to show me something because he was excited and because he likes me or whatever. Like he thinks I'm cool. And I should have just been more like receptive to that. And B, I could be I could have been in that accident. Like there's two different perspectives that had I just been patient and not so eager to get home and eager to be in a comfortable space, that, I could have gotten more, other things could have happened to me. And, having that perspective is definitely very important when it comes to that. So thank you for sharing that perspective that Father Dan gave you, and, knowing where your feet are and paying attention and observing.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. No, that's and it's crazy how often things like that will happen in life, and I'm so glad to hear that you were able to make again that connection and brought so much value to that situation. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. I feel like it makes life more interesting when you're thinking about things like that, because you're more observant of all the little things that happen around you. Like it's not just that main mission that you have. Like say your main mission is, your sports performance coach, that's all you focus on. But when you take a step back and you observe more like big picture things in life, it's a little more interesting, I think. I
Oh
believe.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. To that point, I have like I have two things to say to that. One of which, one instance was like from high school. I didn't play a whole lot in high school. I got one chance to start my senior year, and I was like, cool, playoff game. Like I'm in it, last game of the year, if unless we win. And there was a point at like towards the third or fourth quarter, and it's a close game, man. We're losing guys. Guys are getting injured left and right, and it's like close game. And for a second, I stepped back from the huddle and just like looked around and was like, "Holy cow! Like I'm here. Like this is cool." And
Yeah.
just really taking time to appreciate it. And I think nowadays, what I really would love, I don't know if you do this, but in terms of appreciation, I like to look up. I like to, when I'm walking, I'll take walks outside, or, if I'm even, just in nature, just outside in general, look up at the tops of trees, look up at
Mm.
clouds, look up at, the different things that are around you. Again, being observant and taking appreciation for those things. I love how nice it is right now. I wouldn't be able to fully appreciate the sun on my skin without also appreciating the rain, the clouds, all the other little things. You get both sides of the coin. You never have a one-sided coin. So as long as you're able to appreciate heads, you're also going to really love tails, and vice versa. So like I love that. Appreciation of life is probably the one of the biggest things that we have to make it worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like being excited when it's raining outside, people are like, well, why are you excited when it's raining outside? It's like, because I know what sunshine feels like. And I'm glad that I know what sunshine feels like. Like, it's, this is a South Park reference actually.
Love that.
When Butters was really, really sad because a girl broke up with him, he's sad. And they're like, well, why are you like not depressed? He's like, well, I'm not depressed because something in life can make me feel that good that I would feel this bad, and that's not so bad.
Yeah, that's a bar. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much, yo.
Yeah. So like you said, like just being able to feel the sun, it makes you appreciate even the rain because if it was just sunny outside all the time, we would as humans, we would even get used to it. And we would be like, okay, like can something else happen? Because humans to an extent I feel we like change.
Oh
Even
yeah,
though that change sometimes is negative. Um, not that rain is negative. Again, it's all about your perspective.
of course,
But yeah, I like that. I like that analogy, and thank you for sharing that.
brother, of course.
Yeah. Um. So, what is one of the main things that you try to teach all of your, I guess, clients or students, however you view them? What's one of the main things, aside from like actual sports training, but one of the main virtues or lessons that you try to give them?
Yeah, I would say one of the main lessons. Oh, here's a great thing that I like to do. And for my kids, especially for my football players now, and I just so happen to treat or coach a lot of young men right now. I tell them there's uh, three types of people in this world. I tell them there are people that make mistakes and get in a rut, and they just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. There are people that make mistakes and are able to learn from them, and they grow because of it. And then there are people that watch others make mistakes and are able to learn and grow from watching
Mm,
their mistakes and are able to compound on that. So I think the biggest thing out of it is obviously learning from your mistakes and being able to reach that next pinnacle for yourself. Um, but I, especially if I'm in a group setting, I'm like, hey, like look at all your friends around you. Watch what they're doing right, watch what they're doing wrong, make your own decisions about what they're doing, and try to go about it in what you feel like is a right way. Like we're not perfect as people. They're gonna make mistakes sometimes. You're gonna make mistakes sometimes. But if we come together and help each other as a people, we're all gonna get better together. So again, just constantly trying to improve.
yeah.
Because if they keep improving and they're really focused on helping themselves but helping others along the way in that improvement, I've created a good man, but I've also created a good man that's able to help other people become good men. So that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah, man. Life is a culmination of all your experiences and how you felt in those experiences. Some people, even if they think they're doing good and they're trying to like talk to you about it, you kind of know in your head and your heart that like that's not what to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're like, okay, I'm feeling you, I understand, but based on the other 99% of me, the other 99% of my experiences, that's probably not what I'm going to do next.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And some people, that's why you can't even invest all of your thought or advice getting from one person, because then you just become whatever that person says. And sometimes that person's telling the truth. Sometimes they're not telling the truth. You don't
Yep.
know if they're saying things because that's how they feel in the moment or if that's how they actually feel toward you. And having multiple experiences and getting advice from multiple different people and perspectives is very important to your mental and cognitive development. And I feel like a lot of times some people will think like, hey, I got this one person, I'm gonna get all my info from them. Well, that person's a finance person, so you're probably not gonna go to them for like emotional connection. Not saying
Yeah.
that those people aren't good at that, but a better person would be a personal psychologist. Go to them and ask them about personal connection, because then they have a study and a level of experience where it's more suitable and informational, and you can get more out of it, and you understand that it's backed by studying and experience. Whereas I'm not saying that the finance person doesn't have to be personal. They don't have to talk to people. You know, they do have to talk to people. But seeking information where it's most prominent is probably the best thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, just for like a quick example, like you're not gonna ask your mom how to be a dad. Just really like quick example. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And yeah, I feel like you gotta know who you're asking. Like whatever question you have to ask the right person. I feel
Know
like that's
your
very
audience.
important.
Of course, of course. I think knowing your audience is a huge thing. I think one of the really cool exercises I kind of started to do. I haven't done it in a while, actually. Now that I think about it, but when it comes to some decision making, at least on bigger things, I'll write down in my mind. I'll write down my thoughts on the situation, my emotions on the situation, kind of get it all out on paper, and then once I have that thought, I'll go out and ask certain people, okay, hey, what do you feel like is, this, that, and the third about the situation? Write down what they think. And then from my perspective and a culmination of other people's perspectives, now I can make almost a Venn diagram, if you will, combining the two of, after all my emotions are out on paper, I have a more calm and poised state of mind. I can be like, okay, let's, from a third person perspective, displace myself from the situation. See, okay, let's see this person's perspective, aka mine. Let's see all these other people's perspective, aka someone else. And let's culminate a new thought process from those and kind of see how I feel now from a different, again, more calm state of mind. How do I see this decision? What do I think would be best for me based on how I feel and what I think and the thoughts of other people? That obviously would help me and kind of, make a new decision.
Ish, I had to write that down, bro. I had to, because I never had thought of writing down a situation and going, hey, look, if someone was in this situation, what would you say to them? And having people say, okay, and giving a bunch of different perspectives. I just, that's, even though I actually have written down here that you said when we were talking, a lot of people know what to do, not a lot do it or know how to make it actually occur, but they
Mm-hmm.
know what to do. And you kind of just hit the nail on the head with actually giving me something to do based on what, like a theory, I guess, that I've had. You're like, no, here's a practical application of it, and this is how you would do it. So that was really cool. So thank you for sharing that, because
Of course.
I had to write that down, because I'll definitely be using that in the future whenever I
I
have a certain
appreciate that.
situation. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. I also want to get into your word. Your word is enlightenment. So,
Yes.
how has that word impacted you? I guess more not how has that word impacted you, but what does enlightenment mean to you, and how have you used it to become who you are?
Hmm. I think over the years, enlightenment has meant different things to me. I know when I first started my big philosophical journey, a big part of what I was doing was breaking down words to what I believed their fundamental being to be. So, constantly like breaking down the word of like truth, fear, passion, things like that. Big words that I feel like are maybe emotions or, different things that we feel are like sturdy points in our life. And enlightenment was something that has changed over the years for me. One of the things that I go by now, at least what I believe it to be now, is enlightenment is the process to become enlightened is the process of reaching one's highest being in any certain point.
Mm.
So I could be enlightened spiritually, which is, for me, that would be, meditating every day, getting outside, feeling the sun, kind of trying to be one with nature and, the things around me. That's what I would consider that. And that happens, becoming more enlightened is, doing that stuff every day, actually going out and getting it done. Or I know I gave the example of being enlightened mentally. So going out and reading, trying to expand my mind, trying to uh, get to a certain point of intelligence that I feel like is, broad enough to where I can have an intellectual conversation on many different topics. Being enlightened physically, trying to reach the pinnacle of health for myself. Everyone's different. Everyone has different body shapes, different genetics, things like that. But it's, long story short, finding out where you feel like your ceiling is. Because we all think we have different ceilings. You might be like, man, this is where my ceiling might be right now. Then you get to that point, you're like, no, I think I can do better. So you can be, there's never a limit to enlightenment. That's
Yeah.
the best part about it. And it's just kind of like, being hitting that point, and then you could look back and be like, man, I really did that, and be like, okay, well, now I'm excited. What's next? And kind of
Yeah.
keep the ball rolling. And it's always just trying to get to the best version of yourself, essentially, I suppose.
Yeah. Even when you run 10 miles, you could still do one more step.
Yeah.
Like things like that, like the ceiling, right? Like, oh yeah, what does one more step have to do with it? But that's one more step than you had told yourself that you were going to do.
Yep.
It's just a little bit further. It's breaking that ceiling just a little bit more. And yeah, I wanted to ask you while you were talking about enlightenment. You know how they say that, well, it's said in a lot of scripture that Jesus is the light.
Hmm.
What bridge do you think is there between the word enlightenment or becoming the best version of yourself in an aspect and that? Like becoming, like, you know how they say, what would Jesus do?
Hmm.
Like, what would he do? And then, like, enlightenment, becoming enlightened, and he is the light. So, I don't know if I conveyed that properly.
I think you
Or,
did.
okay. All right. Yeah. So, what do you think about that?
So I would say, me personally, I grew up in a super religious household.
Yeah.
But now as a grown man, like I'm not super religious myself. But even so, like I know as being a young man, being brought up Christian Baptist, it was, Jesus was the pinnacle of how you should act and how you should become. So trying to become enlightened and trying to become, like the light is something we've all, in any religion, really, it's really trying to be like what God has put you on. We're all in his image, essentially. And I
Yeah.
still believe that to this day. We're all part of God. Whatever our higher power is, we're all part of that image. We're all a piece of whatever that image is.
Yeah.
So it's trying to become more like that image. It's trying to become, more loving, more caring, more peaceful, more you know having more camaraderie for our fellow man, having more capability to be, empathetic to our fellow man, just trying to be a better person. So I think it all kind of trails in the same trend of, hey, like this is the example,
Yeah.
let's try to be as much like this as we possibly can. It's harder from some people than others, but it's all the same path. We all have uh it's all going in the same direction, but we all take different roads to get there. You know, like
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah. And I feel like that's why the Bible's so important, because if you study the Bible, it's, I don't want to say easier for, but it is. It's easier for you to be like him because you're studying it. Like, it's going to be hard for you to be a doctor if you never open up a medical book. Like,
That's
it's
fair.
going to be hard for you to, you know, anything. If you never open up a business book or you never expose yourself to business people. Just like if you don't surround yourself with people who try to be better, try to be the best version of themselves, it's going to be hard for you to try to be the best version of yourself if you don't surround yourself with people who are trying to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's exposure. Exposure is the key to, you know, being better in any aspect of your life, whether that be your health, your mental, your emotional, whatever it may be. So I feel like that's a huge thing, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. I really appreciate it
Of
because
course,
you
I
explained it
appreciate
a
it,
lot
brother.
better than I even asked the question. So that was that was, so that
I
was
got it. I got it.
yeah. Um yeah, so if you want to at this point in time, if you want to share a quote with everyone, the quote that you have prepared.
Yes, I do have a quote prepared. Anyone that really knows me, and shout out to Noah Clark, because we've talked throughout the years, and he's called me prophet before I even had the whole Ishmael thing going on. So he
Yeah.
just kind of like was an extra person that really made me want to go by that name. But
It
he
was
he
that
knows,
reminder.
yeah.
Yeah.
People that know me know I'm good for quotes. So the quote that I have written down for this specific podcast was reflection, empathy, and effort are the keys to life no one can take away from you. So expanding on that, I think there's a lot of things that happen from the outside in. And I
Yeah.
think the more we're able to internalize our efforts outward, the easier life is going to be for us. And again, the more appreciation we'll have for things. So self reflection, I think, is something that's internalized, something that, like, hey, if I'm in a bad situation, what can I do better to get
Yeah.
myself out of it? Like, because there's at some level, we have to take responsibility of ourselves as well. Things happen, but at some level, we had something to do with it. Whether you're in the wrong place at the right time or the right place at the wrong time, whatever the case may be, we had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Empathy, being empathetic to people is super important. Understanding people, like we human beings, I believe this, human beings were never made to be alone. We are loving beings and creatures. We were meant to be with other people. We were meant to grow with other people. And that doesn't mean a significant other always. That's friends, family. Maybe it can be a significant other, but we become our best versions of ourselves with the help of others.
Yeah.
Um, the last one being effort being something that, I mean, this is a coaching thing, like if
Oh
you
yeah.
can't, and this is something that I got from Kings, Coach
Yeah.
Bentel told me this, and it has never left me. And it's something he just told the team, and it was just like, hey, like, and I'm sure Coach Nar and all them and Sobrowski said it as well, but effort is the one thing you can give. You can mess everything else up, but you can always give good effort,
Yeah.
and that's something I embody, and it's never let me down. Never ever let me down.
No.
So those are all things that are internalized that no one can take away from you. That's something you have to make a decision for yourself to say, hey, these are the things I want to put forth into the world, and no one can take that from you, and you're gonna hopefully live a better life for it because of it.
Yeah. I feel like those are definitely non-biblical virtues. If that
Yeah.
makes, yeah, yeah. It's they are, but they aren't. Like, you should, because in any virtue that you do, you should have all of those things.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of like more of a pinnacle version of those virtues that you should definitely be practicing. Um, so yeah, that was an awesome quote. Thank you for sharing that. I really,
Of course, brother.
I've really enjoyed this chat. I really have. I feel like there's a lot of great takeaways that a lot of people will take from it. Absolutely. And
I certainly hope so. I enjoy having these talks like this, and it's always, at least for me personally, it's always nice to see the people that I went in those days where I was Mick and I was Mikal, and
yeah,
see all my growth. To go back and talk to the same people and see that they've grown too. That's
Yeah,
like that like makes my world, yo. Like it's so cool to know
yeah,
that
dude.
that you guys are doing good things and you're doing great for yourself, man.
Dude, thank you, man. Thank you. And you kind of think to a point like when you start to become the best version of yourself and you're around those people, like how I was talking earlier, when you surround yourself with great people, you start to become great. You now get to be one of those people that others want to surround themselves with in order to be great.
Yeah,
And that
it's
feeling
interesting.
is, yeah,
It definitely, yeah, it's a crazy feeling. I don't think I have a couple friends that do say that to me, and
yeah,
it's kind of like it's like whoa, like man, that's how I think about you, but I didn't know it was a two-way street. It's like that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's definitely a great feeling for sure.
yeah, dude. I mean, just talking, I mean, to be honest, we haven't talked in a while. Just
Couple
talking to
years.
you, yeah, just talking to you on the phone and then talking to you, today. I know for a fact that you are a positive impact on everyone that you are around. Your high energy and focus when I knew you back at King's, you were so high energy and so kind. It was already like I like this guy, like he's cool. And now that you're taking that high energy, that coolness, for lack of a better word, I don't know what to call it. It's like it's not like you're not like reverent to the point where it's like I don't want to hang out with that guy. You're like, yo, come hang out with me. Like, oh, like how you doing? Yada yada. Hey, guess what? This is what you should be doing. You know what I mean? Like it's attractive, and then it's like, hey, like you're gonna come here, but I'm gonna teach you about God and teach you how to be a good person. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
not like off-putting. It's very engaging. That's the word. It's very engaging to talk to you, and that you started out with that engagement. You needed to have that high energy. And while that high energy may have been a little chaotic at Kings, bouncing from doing whatever you wanted to do, now that life has, God has said, well, if I take this away, if I take this away, if I take this away, what are you? Now you're more focused and more driven in that regard. And I really feel like those things needed to happen in order for you to still have that high energy, engaging personality. But now you're focused on delivering a message of being the best version of yourself. So I really feel like, it's working out for you for sure.
I appreciate you, brother. Still gonna try to see where he has planned for me, because
Yeah.
we're still going through it. We're still getting things taken, so I'm like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if do you know Eric Thomas?
That sounds mad familiar. Why does that sound mad familiar to me?
E.T. the hip hop preacher.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think you mentioned him last time
Oh,
too.
dude, I mentioned him a lot. Him and Inky Johnson were two of the main motivational speakers that I listened to whenever I was walking and losing this weight. Huge impacts on my life. But one of his speeches, he goes, "You know how diamonds are formed? At first, they apply pressure, and then once they apply pressure, they go, okay, you go with the pressure. All right, now it's time to apply the heat. And after you apply the pressure and you apply the heat, what makes a diamond is how it gets cut." So even when you go through all the pressure and all the heat, it's time to get cut. And once you get cut, that's when you become a diamond.
Mm,
So even though God's taking those things away from you and it's getting more narrow, it's getting you perfectly like kind of like a diamond. I'm even doing a
yep.
diamond bottom diamond shape, but it's getting you prepared to shine like you're supposed to shine. And that's why you're going through all those things that you're going through.
Yes, sir. One step at a time, one day at a time, brother.
Absolutely.
That's a great
Yeah.
analogy. I love that quote.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Look him up if you get a chance. If you ever need a little kick in the ass when you wake up in the morning, Eric Thomas.
I'm gonna write it down right now.
Yeah. And he uses God. He uses the whole spiritual aspect of life when he does these things. And when he does these speeches, he does speeches, podcasts, everything like that. So I enjoy him. I think you would definitely get something out of it. And yeah. Well,
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ishmael, it
Appreciate
has
that.
been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Um, you know, are there any socials you want to drop? If not, that's perfectly fine. Um,
Um,
I don't know if you have a training page or anything like that.
I don't. I kind of stepped away from social media a little bit, and I think this is probably the biggest thing I've done in a long while. I think I will be stepping away for a while until I kind of get my things together. I'm moving back out to Arizona now. I'm in Pennsylvania right now, actually, but I'm moving back out to Arizona with my folks. So once I get resettled out there, I'll
Okay.
probably be back up and running. But no socials for right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's perfectly fine. I totally understand that. However, we have social medias. So follow us on Excelcast. Well, no, not on Excelcast. Follow us on Instagram at Excelcast underscore. Follow us on TikTok at Excelcast. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube at Excelcast. And like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow, do the Q&As on Spotify. And as always, stay blessed and excel.